Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It is Jeremy Werner catching up with Joey Wagner today. We got a loaded show for you. We're going to talk a little bit about Illinois football recruiting, get 2 commitments so far from the official visit weekend that they just had. We got to talk about women's basketball getting 2 big transfer commitments in the backcourt and on the wing there, Joey. But also we got to talk about the transfer portal window has opened in the spring. I wrote that I thought this could be a quiet week, but boy, it did not start off very quiet. There's always surprises. You can never be too comfortable when it comes to the transfer portal, as we know with basketball, but even with football and Brett Bielema's program. And I think this is a pretty surprising move. Josh McCray enters the transfer portal. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some potential transfer needs. But Joey, when you saw the report from On3 that Josh McCray said he was entering the portal, what was your reaction?
Yeah, I was really surprised. There's a lot I want to unpack with this before we move on, but Brett Bielema's first high school recruit. The relationship between those two has been really well documented. The injuries and sticking through kind of everything that the last few years was for them. His big breakthrough again. I didn't see this coming. I thought I in a way, like that, again, everything we say needs to be unpacked a little bit. The running back room has 4 players who are ready to play, right? So attrition out of that room makes sense. I get it. Like it's hard to keep 4 guys happy with what you can offer. So if you would have told me a back was going to transfer, like, okay, I get that. I understand what's on the table. I just didn't know that it would be Josh McCray, just given he was going into his final year, everything that he and Brett Bielema had built and being a part of this program's rise together. But when you zoom back a little bit and zoom out a little bit and think about it, Josh McCray is probably going to get a nice paycheck, a pretty nice paycheck from his next place. Is he an NFL guy? I don't know. This is a chance to go somewhere. Maybe he's going to get promised, being that 1 or 2 guy somewhere. Maybe he's going to get a good paycheck from his next school. We know how the spring market goes right now. It's crazy what it is. So I don't blame Josh McCray. He was got a good opportunity in front of him. I'm assuming he's probably been in contact with some people, and some people have reached out to him. It was just an initial shock factor. And that's not trying to say anyone's at fault or anything along those lines, but that's just not a name that I saw popping up, the first name to pop up in the Illinois transfer portal cycle. And I just didn't know that we'd see it at all, especially getting through that December window.
You said it. I'm not surprised a running back transferred out of this room. Because there's a lot of good players. And Caden Fagan is returning, and Caden Fagan has been the starter the last 2 years. If you would have told me at the end of September last year, Josh McCray entered the transfer portal, I would not have been shocked, right? I mean, he was really struggling in the early going, hadn't really made an impact since his freshman year due to injuries, and then playing behind Caden Fagan the last 2 years. But it's the way he ended his season, right? And especially the last glimpse we saw of Josh McCray was him running away from South Carolina, getting the Citrus Bowl MVP award, him being the photo everybody used from that game. Even though there were some really good performances elsewhere, like Josh McCray helped close out that game, and it was kind of the signature performance because you think of that, the Penn State game, the overtime game, Josh McCray ran for 150 yards on like 30 carries. That's what he does. He helps close out games, had a phenomenal game against Purdue. But you finally saw what you thought he could be if he was healthy and if he got a heavy workload. And he and Aiden Lawfrey had phenomenal ends to the year. I mean, 10 touchdowns rushing the season was fantastic for Josh McCray. But the reason this surprises me is just the relationship with Brett Bielema. How close they were. He was the first recruit here. To be honest with you, Brett stuck with Josh longer than I think other people would have because of their relationship. And Josh wasn't very effective until October of last year. The previous 2.5 seasons, just whether it was injuries, coming back from that physically, coming back from that mentally, or not getting enough snaps to really get a rhythm, he just wasn't the same player you saw at times that could be the bell cow his freshman year. So it is a loss for Illinois to lose Josh McCray because I love Aiden Lawfrey. I love Caden Fagan, and that is a proven Thunder Lightning duo. But both of those guys dating back to high school have had a lot of injury issues almost every year of their career. It's a position that we know, especially from 2 years ago, but even last year with Caden Fagan, has a lot of injuries, and Josh McCray is a starting caliber back. So while I don't think this is the end of the world for that running back room, just like losing Reggie Love wasn't, losing Reggie Love still hurt your depth. this still hurts your depth. And we can talk about what that means for the rest of the room. But I'm not surprised Josh McCray wants to go find more carries because Brett Bielema talked to you guys today. And the one thing he said is he saw himself as a backup running back. And if you see yourself as that, that's what you think. He was one of 3 running backs. And I do think Caden Fagan has a higher ceiling than them. Khalil Valentine has 3 years of eligibility. That's a guy you want to keep in your program. So Josh McCray in his final year of eligibility wants to go to a place where, 1, he's definitely going to get more carries, maybe a starter, and 2, probably getting a payday somewhere. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. Brett Bielema today did talk to us, got a story online, the video's on YouTube. I thought Brett Bielema absolutely nailed the conversation today. I'm sure it was hard for him. Brett's the guy who wears his emotions on his sleeve. He builds relationships, not just with Josh, with all of these guys. So when it's moved, he said he wasn't shocked. Okay, I was, you were. I think it's fair to, if he really wasn't, good for him, but he didn't show any signs of it on Wednesday. But yeah, it must have been tough for him to lose Josh, and it is a loss. It happens everywhere, right? Someone transfers out, it's like, well, and then here's all these warts that never were talked about for, 3 years. But Josh McCray was a good pass protector. You don't need to spin this into anything that wasn't a loss. He's good for depth. He was a good pass protector. I thought he had really good hands out of the backfield. Thought he could wear down opponents. Josh McCray's a good running back. He's a serviceable Big Ten running back who can help you close out games. You don't need to spin it into anything that it's not. And I know you weren't, but let's just be real here. That happens when there's departures across the country. People feel the urge to spin some sort of thing. No, man, Josh was a good player. Yeah. And he's going to go be a good player at his next stop.
Illinois, you could have said this spring had 4 good running backs going in. I'd rather have 4 than 3. Right.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what they got. They got John Forster and Cedric Weich coming in. And hey, I think Aaron Ball is a way better emergency option as a walk-on running back than what you had 2 years ago when he had all these injuries. So if you had to put him in, I think it'd be more like what Minnesota had to deal with. Remember that walk-on kid came in and had like 100 yards. I can see Aaron Ball behind a good offensive line doing a decent job, but no, it is a loss. And the other thing about Josh McCray is I just think his vision was by far the best among those running backs. He's not an explosive back. What do you think you'd run, a 4.7 at best?
Probably.
Something like that. Caden at best in the 4.6s. Aiden Lawfrey could probably be in the 4.5s. Khalil Valentine's probably around there as well. So you have more explosive options, but I just thought his vision was the best of those guys. Caden, that was his problem early in the season last year. I thought he was just coming on. I thought he was in for a big explosive back half of the year. Has that freaky hip injury, which is a real concern. Hip injuries and running backs. Everyone thinks of Bo Jackson, right? That's a concern. Foot, hip, all those kind of things. And Aiden's just had a lot of hamstring injuries, kind of injuries that have nagged him throughout his career. But I thought he took a huge step forward in just his confidence and vision. You saw the explosiveness really return for him. So if you tell me Fagan and Lawfrey are healthy for most of the year and Khalil Valentine gains strength and adds another dynamic, maybe this doesn't hurt Illinois, but if one of those guys gets hurt, you could really use a Josh McCray.
Yeah, I really like what this running back room can be when healthy. I think that's not a hot take. That there's talent there. There's guys who have produced. I think we also have to look. Most of Brett Bielema's years, outside of maybe one, there's always been that freshman running back who was like, look at that. This guy's getting some carries. Last year it was Khalil Valentine. Before that, it was obviously Caden Fagan. Do I have my years right on Caden?
Yep.
Yeah. Josh McCray in 2021. I mean, we went into training camp. I remember talking. It's like, is this guy like the fit back? What's he going to be? I think Tony Peterson even said, I didn't know what to really, glean out of training camp. Then he just kept pushing it on. I think John Forster's a guy who physically you would think could go in there and be ready. But yeah, I mean, we don't need to write off and say, there's 2 freshmen coming in who I think one of them, history tells us, could find their way to snaps in a pinch. And, even if you don't need them, I like the 3 win healthy options that Illinois has.
Yeah, and for me, it's Forster more than Weich because what is more like Khalil Valentine, Aiden Lawfrey. He's more of a scat back, third down back. John Forster would be the one. I mean, if you see pictures of him from his visit, he's ripped up. 5'11", 190. I think he'll add strength pretty quickly. It's just you would have liked him to be here in the spring, right, to get some of that experience. But Khalil wasn't here last spring, so it's a position that you can learn pretty quickly. The thing I always get concerned about with freshman running backs is blocking. And that's something Josh McCray was pretty dang good at. He could be a 3-down back. You could have him in on third downs, and obviously he could wear you down late in games. So that is a loss, but you're right. I think John Forster is talented enough to play. Now it's about Illinois getting him up to speed. The other option that is interesting here is Jordan Anderson, because he's a guy that if he decided to move on and with 2 years of eligibility, I wouldn't blame him because he's moved positions to tight end. He's probably like on the periphery of that rotation, right? As an H-back type player, because you have Davin Stoffel and Tanner Arkin and Cole Rusk. But he got moved from running back because you had all these other options. Now there could potentially be a role for him to be a short yardage option, because we saw him come in that kind of fullback role, take some carries in some high leverage times. And at 6'4", 240, if he can be your emergency option behind Fagan, because you don't have another big back. Like Aiden, I think can churn out a couple yards, but Khalil Valentine's not that guy yet. He's more of a speed option, get him on outside zone, put a foot in the ground, get uphill, get him out on the outside. Like he's more speed, explosive option. John Forster still 190 pounds. Weich is that speed option. So a room that was full of these big backs only has one left. Thad has changed it to more dynamic room, which I think was necessary, but you still could use another option in case Fagan gets hurt for the fourth straight year, right? He got injured as a senior in high school and has gotten injured each of the last 2 years at Illinois.
Yeah, I think we need to mention, probably should have mentioned this off the rip. Brett Bielema today said he doesn't expect to add to the running back room in the spring transfer portal. We will just see, right? Like, I think an opportunity presents itself. We know how they are flexible with some of that, but that's his plan going in, or what he said doesn't sound like someone interested in adding.
For me, Joey, that might depend on Jordan Anderson. Like if Jordan Anderson decides, hey, I'm going to go to a different level and be a number one back, because I think he could do like great in somewhere like the MAC or something like that. But if he came back, I'd feel good that I'd have at least another flavor there that I can give the ball to in short yardage situations. But if they lost him too, I'd bet maybe you could use a veteran that's just a bigger kind of guy.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think you got to sell that to a veteran. Yeah, and you've also got a roster crunch that you're about to be facing, unless there's some grandfather clause in this house settlement. And I think along the lines of Jordan Anderson, if in a pinch, you don't have to fully move him out of the tight end room. Jordan Anderson has taken handoffs for a long time. If it's first and goal from the 3, the guy knows what to do, right? It's not going to be a surprise to him. So you can still keep him at tight end. And I'm not comparing the skill set, but like Tyler Warren took handoffs. You can find ways to get him the ball while still primarily keeping him at tight end if that's the role. So we'll see. I mean, I do on the surface, just given the roster crunch, given the pitch to someone coming in it. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a tough sell to bring another running back in right now. We will just see how that goes and how that plays out. There's a question, if we take a big picture look at this, Jeremy. Brett Bielema, we've written about it. You've done a really good job writing about it. Retention has been so good for Illinois football. So good. So this podcast like this, where we're talking about, whoa, I couldn't believe, John, these don't really happen very often. It's been a lot of lower guys on the 2 deep, kind of developmental guys moving on for a bigger role. This is one of the bigger transfer surprises of Brett Bielema's tenure that I can really zoom in on. There are a couple other, I'm trying to think, we had this conversation earlier, like Anthony Johnson, just because he was here for like a half a second and left, and we thought there was going to be a big role for him. AJ Dennis, similar situation, here for a half a second for spring, ultimately leaves. Those are the two that would come to mind, but we don't have these conversations a lot about Brett Bielema's program, and that's a credit to their retention. So yeah, this is kind of a jarring conversation. Any names to you that come to mind that, like Reggie Love made sense. He followed Corey Patterson to Purdue. Calvin Smith made sense. He followed Kevin Kane to Purdue. These just don't happen very often, man.
No, I'm going through the list, and even a guy who started games, it was because he lost his job to Dylan Rosick, CJ Hart, right?
Yep.
Like, there's not a lot of guys that have been in the 2 deep. Like, there's always going to be bottom of the roster, bottom of the depth chart guys. Daniel Barker entered the portal a couple years ago, but he had been through a coaching change too, and Michigan State came in with an offer. So yeah, Dennis would probably be the biggest one. Like, as you said, Reggie Love was one of the bigger players, like production wise, who entered the portal. Zy Chrysler was, hey, you lost your starting spot. You got this extra year of eligibility because the Pavia ruling.
Maybe Zach Toby goes in that conversation.
Toby. Yeah, Toby's a good one. Henry Boyer a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But not like entirely that surprising. So yeah, that's a credit to Brett Bielema that's happened. I'm expecting more bottom of the roster depth chart attrition. There's going to be guys entering the transfer portal. Most of them, some fans probably don't even know much about them. But the key is not losing a lot more of these guys, right? Because then you got to go back into the portal and add a lot of pieces. And that's what this spring portal of Illinois adding anybody, it's basically going to be, who do they lose? Do they lose guys that they expected to play, and then do they have to go replace them in the transfer portal? Otherwise, like, I just wrote up my top needs potentially in the transfer portal, and Bielema was advertising it with you guys today. I'm glad he did, because I've been saying this the last couple of weeks. The biggest need they have right now is a backup punter. It is a screaming need to me. And Bielema was screaming, hey, you want a scholarship at a Big Ten program? Come and be my backup punter and then be a starter the next couple of years. They love Keelan Crimmins. His hang time is better. The consistency is better at punter. They feel like they've gotten a huge upgrade with the Purdue transfer, but he only has 1 year of eligibility. And their other guy that's on the roster right now as a punter is Colin Blockey. And I think that was just so somebody else could punt during spring ball, because they lost Declan Dooley. They lost Fabrizio Pinton to the transfer portal. They need somebody that can come in here and at least be okay, at least has some kind of proven pedigree in case there's an injury. Hugh Robertson got hurt last year at punter, and Fabrizio Pinton was big to come in and give them a couple games where he was solid.
And then he got hurt. Remember, he got his ankle turned. I think it was at Rutgers or it was Rutgers. Sure. He got his ankle turned right after you're taking the job. I mean, it's not often, but it happens.
Yeah. So you need another option that you can go with. And I think it's actually a decent sell, because it's like, hey, learn 1 year and then you can be the starter for a couple of years and be on scholarship here. So
pending a waiver for another year of eligibility for Keelan Crimmins.
That's right. We'll see how those goes. They can't bank on that though. So that is their biggest need by far. Otherwise, I think you're just looking for depth, and a lot of that might be whack-a-mole, Joey. It's like, I lose a guy to the spring portal here. Let's go find another guy here.
Yeah, Jeremy, it is April 16th, and we are talking about the biggest need for Illinois football in the spring portal window, which we talked about before. That's not a window you want to have glaring needs, because that is, especially right now, that is an expensive game to be playing. And credit to the kids for being able to cash in on that expensive game. To going into the spring portal window and you need a backup punter, I texted you the other day, like, man, this roster has really, really – we talk a lot about it, but we probably don't talk enough about how much this roster has evolved and grown, and the depth in particular has really started to manifest. Not at every position. There are some we have reasonable questions about under Brett Bielema. It's taken a heck of a step forward, this roster.
Yeah, because you think of last year going into the spring, they still had huge needs at corner, which they didn't address in the winter the year prior in 2024. And then they had a huge need at wide receiver. They had Pat Bryant. It was like, who else is going to start here? So they end up going and getting Zachary Franklin, home run of an addition. Went and got Terrence Brooks, ended up busting for them, right? It'll be interesting to see where he lands. They also went and got Torrey Cox Jr. in the spring. Like that, what a huge hit that was, that we don't talk enough about. One of the plays of the year, the Nebraska interception, had 3 interceptions on the year, and he's undersized, but boy, he is sticky in coverage, and he's really good. Like, that was such a good find for them. They also went and got Gentle Hunt after losing Anthony Johnson, and Gentle is more of just a sub-package player, but they have added pieces that matter in the spring portal here. So it will be interesting to see if they land anywhere else. The other thing I would get greedy with, I'd like another veteran offensive lineman, or at least an offensive line piece. The few practices we saw, the second string offensive line, there's a huge downgrade there, which you'd expect when you have 5 returning starters on the offensive line. And it's not fair because TJ McMillan's out, Desmond Schuster's out, Eddie Turk is out. And I think all those guys have the chance to be 2 deep guys. I'd like another guy I feel like can go in a game and compete and has a little bit of experience. So we'll see if that happens. I would expect some attrition at the bottom of the offensive line this spring too. So I would like one more piece. And I think what you can sell because I feel like your top 6 are accounted for, with Brandon Hansen being the number 6 guy. Aiden Knappich, I think they want a red shirt. I think your sell would be like, hey, you're going to be number 2 or 3 off our bench in the rotation potentially, and then next year you have a great chance to start. Like, right? Because they have 4 guys that are losing to graduation after this year, so they could really use a guy that can compete for a starting spot next year.
Yeah, so whether that's a multi-year guy or it's a Knappich plan where it's like, we would like you here. We want you to be aware that your red shirt could be burned at any time, and we'll have that conversation. But otherwise, we'd like to redshirt you, and this would be a ton of opportunity coming up. That's a hard sell because it requires a lot of trust, and it requires a lot of unknown for a turned ankle here, or whatever the case is, where you'd have to have the conversation about not using that red shirt. But Aiden Knappich bought into it, and that's, as we talked about before, break the glass in case of emergency. But at that point, you're adding depth, and helps when you return the starters that you've returned, where you've retained some of those younger guys that you've retained who are now valuable pieces of your 2 deep. Are there going to be, I call it the 2.5 deep, right? Those guys who are like, maybe it's a sub package 2 deep, whatever the case is. There going to be some turnover there? Maybe. I mean, is there going to be another surprise in the portal? Maybe. I don't know, right? I mean, we see, I know you and Derek talk about it all the time on here. Right now, this window between the house settlement and NIL, like, there's a lot of opportunity out there for kids in the transfer portal, and cash in on that, right? So we'll see how that goes, Jeremy. But this roster is in a good spot. I'm really impressed with where this roster is right now going into the opening of the spring portal cycle.
Yeah, it's in a good spot. You just want to keep it that way. Right,
absolutely.
For the next 10.
I think this coaching staff has done a good, like, I don't think that you and I, as we plan our content, are like, hey man, who knows who could jump in. Obviously it's underlying that anyone could, but I don't get the sense that it's like, oh man, they're on pins and needles for this impact player. I mean, I just think they've done a good job of building those relationships. They take care of their guys. That's why when someone like McCray goes in, it is a true surprise. I mean, we don't have a story. We didn't have a story written up a month in advance for Josh McCray going into the portal. Yeah,
I think Toby was one we didn't have written up, right? AJ Dennis happened pretty quickly, so it didn't have one.
Word kind of traveled about that a little bit before, but yeah, there's a couple true surprises out there.
Can I give a little nugget to because the Tennessee thing, it's obviously going to have dominoes throughout college football, and it'll be interesting to see where Nico ends up. But obviously there's fear of anybody that has a quarterback outside the SEC. So I'll give a little nugget to the podcast listeners here. I was told that Luke Altmaier, after all that stuff happened, reached out to the coaching staff and said, hey, is there anybody in the transfer portal you want me to recruit? So.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to worry. Luke Altmaier had offers in the winter too. Right? Like,
he offers too, and a lot more money.
Yeah, I don't have any. I didn't think twice about it. Which is again a credit to Brett Bielema, to Barry Lunny, to Art Sikowski, to Luke Altmaier. I mean, it's not anything that really even you cross your mind is like, oh, I wonder what happens here. But I didn't put a lot of stock into thinking like, oh, I better prepare one up here.
Yeah, because you trust the staff. And that's huge. He knows this offense he can succeed in. Feels like he's got an offensive line that can protect him. I think he's very comfortable here, just personally. Illinois is obviously invested a lot in him financially. So there are some big paydays that could be had. And hey, if you're any quarterback's representation, I'd be reaching out to other people when the Tennessee thing happens. But yeah, I think he's bought in and doing big things over the next 8 months for Illinois football before he makes the leap to the NFL.
Yeah, for a team that's a college football playoff discussion, Luke Altmaier is getting everything he wanted out of college football right now at a place that believed in him and watched him grow and stuck with him as he grew through that. I think there's a lot of depth to Luke Altmaier, and I think that's really meaningful to him.
Guys, summer's not that far away, so make this your best season yet with nutritious 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. All you have to do, just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Use Factor meals because they arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle. And with 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Keto, or my favorite Protein Plus, and many more options. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfast, on-the-go lunch, lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. So get started today at factormeals.com/Illini50off and use code Illini50off. That's Illini50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Illini50off at factormeals.com/Illini50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Well, Joey, we'll talk a little bit about football recruiting before we get to the women's side here. 3 commitments so far, all from Florida, from the official visits in April. I think that's a great start of showing that, hey, yeah, getting April official visits, that was a good move. And I think they're setting the tone for a lot of these guys that they have hosted. I think they're setting a high bar of what these official visits are. And this is a critical period where a lot of guys are making college decisions. And 3 of your top targets, Javari Barnett, the running back out of Florida, Tony Williams, the linebacker out of Florida, and Elmirian Thomas, the defensive back out of Florida, all decided, yep, it's time to close this deal down. So I think the plan is working out, right? And then we could talk about Nasir Rankin and J.C. Anderson and Max Suter and Tony Bologna, I want to say, right? Tony B out of Palatine. I feel like you're setting a really good tone in those recruitments too, getting those guys on campus first. We'll see how it ends up in the long run, but I think so far this seems like it's been a pretty good deal, these April official visits.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're getting those 3 commits is big. I talked to J.C. Anderson after his official. He was really, really, really impressed. I thought they did an excellent job on that visit. The thing that I've always wondered with these, it can go one of 2 ways, right? Like you can see them be like, oh, you got to hold on for a month before they take another round of official visits. But if you do a good enough job, you can also make a kid say, do I really want to get on a plane and do this all again? You know, like the kids will, right? Obviously, kids are going to do that, but you can really set a stage where it's like, this feels good. I know where I want to be. I don't want to keep doing this after a month of just nothing. So, you know, let's jump on board. And we saw that early on with these first 2 weekends. So it can go either way. You got to really have a read on the kid you're recruiting. I think that's the big thing. I mean, you don't want to set an April official just for the sake of it. You want to make sure that makes sense for that particular recruitment. And I think that clearly there's some thought put into what Illinois wanted to do and who they wanted to get on in April and who they wanted to pair together. And if you're someone like a J.C. Anderson and Nasir Rankin, local, even a Midwest, a 5-hour drive type kids, they're not going to shut the door. You want to come back for an unofficial visit? Welcome to the Smith Center. Happy to have you, you know? So we'll see. I mean, good hit rate so far. I think they set the bar really, really high with J.C. Anderson. You know, they probably made up some ground with Max Suter. We'll see. We'll see how that all plays out, but it looked like it was a smart decision.
I feel like the next step for me in this class, and I want to bring up, like, I think getting Micah Smith on campus first was really smart because I don't know if you get him on later, right? Like, and you can maybe open his eyes and be like, oh, this is maybe a place I want to consider. Kai Pritchard, a guy they've been recruiting for a long time, to get him on early. He's going to take other visits. A lot of ACC programs are involved with him. Rutgers, the in-state program, is really involved with him. Could be tough to beat them, but to get them on campus first makes sense, set a tone. And then, Joey, to be honest with you, it's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7 more weeks before Illinois hosts official visits. If those guys start making decisions or don't make a decision, you know, in June, oh, I got to get these other targets on campus too. So that's the other great thing about having this April and then June is you kind of know what you still have to target once the summer comes along. But the next big step for me is in-state. You got 3 commitments already in-state. Can you close on some of these guys, especially these headliners? You just had, according to 24/7 Sports, the top 3 in-state prospects. Nasir Rankin, number 2, Max Suter, number 1, J.C. Anderson, number 3.
Pretty good.
Today, I think they're getting 2 of them. Like I think if those guys made decisions today, I think they're getting 2 of them. I think they're the leader for Nasir Rankin, but they got to close it out, right? J.C. Anderson, I think they have pushed to the front. Joey, you've been recovering that recruitment a lot. Sounds like it's down to them. Auburn, I know Ole Miss has been in the mix there. I think they should feel pretty good about where they are. And for Max Suter, I think they've made him think about this a little bit more. And him and JC are close friends. I think actually landing JC could help with Max Suter. But that's what the rest of this class is about, is making those in-state splashes, getting top 10 prospects. because it's the one thing Brett Bielema has not done a lot of, right? Is getting that tier of prospect in state. I think you're set up as well as ever under Brett Bielema, Lovie Smith, really dating back to Ron Zook, to get some of the best prospects in state. Now it's all about getting those guys on board over the next couple months.
Yeah, and your sell is as good as it's been since Brett Bielema has been here to get some of those guys. And some of that is the fact that they've had so long to recruit these guys. We say this all the time, but when you finally see these kids on campus, like, man, haven't we been talking to Caden Fagan since he was a junior in high school? Haven't we been talking to J.C. Anderson since he was a junior in high school? So the pitch is good, and the closing opportunity, I'm with you, is right there for guys like Rankin, for Anderson. I think they did make up some good ground with Suter this weekend. And if you can get two of the top three guys in the state of Illinois to come to Illinois, that's some big moves, and that'll push you up obviously further into what's projecting to be a really, really good nationally ranked recruiting class for Brett Bielema and for Illinois. So, yeah, it's a lot of. I mean, I feel like there should be some optimism for where they are at this moment in time, and then you can kind of go on down the line there, especially in the state. But this isn't a case where you talk about in state and you're getting, and there's good players ranked 25 through 30 in the state of Illinois. But now you're really legitimately pushing for that top 1% in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, you're more often beating out the Iowas and Wisconsins of the world, right? Now it's about, can you beat out the Ole Miss, the Auburns, other Big Ten powers. I mean, JC and Mac both have Penn State offers, right? Notre Dame has been involved with those guys. Like, that's the level of recruitment. If you start winning those, you're just taking your program to a higher ceiling level, right? And I don't want to overlook Messiah Tilson, number 8 prospect in the state. They were the first to offer him, first to get him on campus, first official visit. King Liggins out of Brother Rice, top 20 prospect, in-state defensive lineman out of the Catholic League. And then Tony B out of Palatine, number 21 prospect in the state. I think they've done a great job there. So this could be, along with Jacob Alexander, Davon Grant, right? They're off to a pretty good start in this class. If they can, at Casey Towman out of Alney, like, that's starting to be a pretty good recruiting class in the state, one of the best we've seen, if they can close on those guys. So
still see what happens with Owen Forrest.
Yeah.
That's kind of been this long process with him, but he's still a guy they're in on, and they've been in on him for a while.
Nick Hankins out of Belleville, visiting next in June. There's another top 10 prospect in state, number 11, according to 24/7 Sports, that you have a chance to really make a push for as well. All right, let's switch to Illini women's basketball, Joey. 2 big transfer commitments. They got their work done early. Illinois basketball, the men's side, we're still waiting to see another big piece or two that they can land. And yeah, we'll get Derek Piper on later on this week or whenever things happen. But Aaliyah Guyton out of Iowa commits. Maddie Webber out of Villanova commits. So Aaliyah Guyton, Joey, how did they land her, and what does she add to the program?
Well, she was, by everything I understand, her and Webber were the top 2 targets for Illinois in the portal from as near as I've been able to gather in terms of what they wanted. So they got them both. Guyton, man, that was a long process to finally get Aaliyah Guyton to commit to Illinois. Shauna Green really, really prioritized her. Calamity McIntyre really, really prioritized her. She went to Peoria High. They followed her everywhere. They're at that gym all the time. They're at AAU all the time. They were really, really pushing to get her on campus out of high school. She went to Iowa. I get it. You're coming off the Caitlin Clark effect. There's minutes to be there. I think, you got to consider Illinois brought back Micaiah Cook, brought back Genesis Bryant. So you got to wonder if that played a factor into her decision out of high school. But once she got in the portal, it's like, okay, this one makes sense. This makes so much sense for Illinois. We talked about it with Skylar Jones. She ultimately chose Louisville. I don't really know how much traction that truly got down the stretch, but I know when Guyton went in, it's like, get her and everything else falls into place. You can kind of keep everybody else where they're supposed to be. They got her on campus, and it's like, okay, if she's on campus, I don't know if she had any other official visits set up. I don't know why you would. Like, get this feels like a slam dunk. So she's a chance to come in, and I think the relationship she has with Destiny Jackson, those two both are friends or close. I think Destiny Jackson probably had some conversations in this recruiting process with Aaliyah Guyton. So there's a trust there between those two. Guyton's a point guard, so she can either play on ball, maybe she can play a 2 if you want to share the floor with Jackson. One can come off the bench. There's so much time, right, to figure all of that out and what that looks like. Illinois has played 2 point guards successfully with Shauna Green. We know that. We've seen that with Bryant and Cook. This is a big get for them. She can shoot the heck out of it from 3-point land. Probably a little bit of an up and down freshman year, but you gotta be a freshman somewhere, right? You got to be a freshman in the Big Ten at some schools. Now Illinois is getting Guyton after her freshman year, another year removed from that ACL injury that she had back in high school. I think I'm really optimistic about this get for Illinois. She's got 3 years of eligibility, and just the fact that her and Jackson are as close as they are, that is extremely, extremely meaningful. Those two are excited to play together from everything I've been able to gather. So big one for Illinois to finally close that. Shauna Green is good about that second time around. I mean, you go back, I went back through with Jasmine Brown-Hager. You get her the second time around. She chased Kendall Bostic forever. That kind of ended up being a match where you kept Kendall Bostic, right, with Shauna Green. Genesis Bryant was probably the biggest example in terms of what she blossomed into at Illinois. So that was significant for Illinois to land her and bring her back to the state and give her a good role. I think she'll have a chance to be in a really significant role for Illinois this year.
Yeah, Peoria native, obviously, and to come home makes a lot of sense. Yes, AJ Guyton's daughter, like she can shoot it, just like AJ used to. But yeah, just watching film, I've seen her play a couple live games as well. There's a lot of Genesis Bryant there. Like there's just a lot. So like, what if you're her? Like this is a natural fit. You know the staff. They recruited you heavily. Felt like Illinois was number 2 in that recruitment, right?
They were 100%. They were. Yeah.
So it made so much sense when she entered the portal that this would work, and it made sense for her to maybe go to Iowa after Caitlin Clark leaves because Illinois still had Makira Cook and still had Genesis Bryant. So it makes a lot of sense for her to make this move, and I think the fit is just really, really natural. So to come back in state, that's a really cool thing. Definitely 25+ minute player for next year. And you get it for 3 years. And as you said, Joey, that combo of Destiny and Aaliyah Guyton, you could have for the next 3+ seasons together. And I do think they complement each other. Aaliyah's a little bit longer, looks like, while Destiny's just, she can get to the rim. She's got a little bit more Makira to her offensively. I think Aaliyah's a better shooter, kind of like Genesis was a better shooter. But Destiny defensively, I think, is a good fit. Like she's going to get after it on ball defense. So that's a great 1-2 combo, potentially long term. Probably go through some ups and downs next year.
Yeah, Aaliyah Guyton's got some length to her too. She's 5'7", so I think that's something that we've seen Illinois do is get bigger. So now you look. We'll get to Maddie Webber here shortly, Jeremy. Aaliyah Guyton's a sophomore. Gretchen Dolan is going to be a redshirt sophomore. She's going to get the medical when that time comes. Mary Wallace, sophomore. You've got a young nucleus here to be that next wave. And you look at someone like Aaliyah Guyton, Gretchen Dolan, Barry Wallace, they've been through this. Like they're sophomores, they're young, they're that next wave, but they played that Big Ten game before. They understand kind of the speed of it. Still, I think Jasmine Brown-Hager is a huge, huge returning piece. I thought she was so tough. She was so versatile this year for Illinois. Getting her back, she should be a voice in that locker room next year. So you're seeing this. They're young, but they're like kind of an experienced young. There are going to be ups and downs. I think we should expect that for Illinois. But I do like the pieces that they have for both next year and then long term.
All right, Maddie Webber coming from Villanova, averaged double figures last year. The shooting numbers weren't the best, the efficiency numbers, but she knows how to score. So what does Maddie Webber bring? What do you think the role will be?
Yeah, first of all, it's a totally different recruitment than Guyton. This was don't know you, maybe seen you, but Shauna Green, this coaching staff, they really, really, really liked what they saw on film from her in the transfer portal, and they pushed incredibly hard to get her. She told me maybe she was going to take 4 or 5 visits. She got to Illinois, saw what Illinois had, liked what she saw, and obviously committed to Illinois. 5'11", probably someone who can play on the wing. The efficiency numbers, I think she shot in the neighborhood of 30% on 3-pointers. She was asked to do a lot at Villanova from a scoring standpoint. I think she averaged just north of 5 3-pointers a game as a sophomore for Villanova. The only people who did that at Illinois were Makira Cook and Genesis Bryant during Shauna Green's tenure. So with more around her, you probably don't need her to take 5 3-pointers a game. But she also had games where she was 5 of 8. You know, she can really score the ball. She told me that mid-range pull-up, she can shoot it. I think she wants to get better at getting to the rim. I think she wants to get better at increasing her foul rate. She probably can put the ball on the floor a little bit more than you would think. And they like her defensively. 5'11" is good length to have out there on that wing spot. You know, you can get lost in the 1, 2s, and 3s. Somewhere in that guard wing area is where you're going to see Maddie Webber. I wouldn't imagine it's going to be as a facilitator, right? But she can play on that perimeter with Gretchen Dolan, with Barry Wallace, and now you've got some significant size out there, at least better size than you've had in the past. So that's just different, right? Like usually we've seen Shauna Green have some connections in the portal when they go, and they just won Maddie Webber over. I think she can score the heck out of the basketball. And she said, you know, she didn't play against Illinois in that WBIT championship game. She was hurt, but she watched their guards and like, man, they play fast. That looks fun, and just really worked out. And they've done a good job of portal development, guard development, not just portal. Obviously, Micaiah Cook was someone who they've had forever, and that stood out to her. And she said, it's not that these guards get better after 4 years. It's year over year. You see meaningful. Jasmine Brown-Hager is a great example of that. You see meaningful development from those guards. So they got their top, let's just say 2 of their top portal targets. I don't want to say 100% that they were the top 2, but I know they were very, very high on the wish list for Illinois women's basketball. And they got it done in one weekend. I would expect Jeremy probably gets a little quieter on the portal front. I know there's some people ask if they would be interested in adding a post. I think if the right one came about, but I think they're also encouraged by the freshmen they have coming in, Naomi Benson, Manuela Alves. They had CeCe Parchment on campus for this last semester. Letty is coming off of her knee injury. She, I know she was getting some work in the gym the other day. I saw a video of her, just some short shooting. Haven Smith. It's a lot. It's a lot to put on freshmen. It's a lot to put on second-year player in Haven Smith and Letty coming off of an injury. But I do think if it came down to it, they'd be good to roll into the season with that as their post. And, it's hard when you look at the post, right? You don't want someone to come in just to take minutes from them. If you want to add a post, you want to add an impactful post. I just don't know that is out there right now. And I know they're really encouraged by what these freshmen can possibly be for them next season.
Yeah, if they would have gotten like the Merkel girl from Penn State, that makes sense. Somebody who's having figures in the Big Ten, is going to rebound at a really high rate. Like if you want to upgrade like that, absolutely. But they're going to have size next year. They're going to have depth in the post. That's something they have never had, right? Since Shauna Green's been here really long time. I don't even remember the last time they had a lot of post depth. But like Haven Smith is 6'6". Letty Vasconcelos is 6'7". Then you got the freshmen that are coming in here, 6'2", 6'2", 6'1", right? They're getting much bigger and deeper there in the post. They're getting tougher, wider, right? Like they're getting some more powerful girls up there. So I'm encouraged by that. And as you said, Joey, like think about all the different scorers they have now, especially after Micaiah got hurt last year and Gretchen got hurt. They really only had 4 players that could score in double figures. Now it feels like they got 6 or 7, right? Like just spread it out options that are going to force defenses to guard more people. And I think you got a lot of shooters on this roster. So, Jasmine Brown-Hager going into a junior year, Gretchen Dolan, you and I are incredibly high, and I think could be one of the best scorers in the Big Ten if she's healthy. And then Barry Wallace looked like a McDonald's All-American. Like in those games against the number 1 seeds that they were playing, she looked like she belonged, and she was just a freshman. So I think that was one of the best silver linings of this season for Illinois was people like Jasmine Brown-Hager and Barry Wallace getting all of that time to make mistakes, to grow from it, and to become better for it, to become more confident for it. So you had all of that with a couple of girls who have experience and Maddie Webber and Aaliyah Guyton with a top 10 recruiting class. I don't know if it's an NCAA tournament team. They're going to go through their ups and downs. There's enough talent to be that. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching this new team kind of come together because it's a different looking team. But it's just now they got to go through their growing pains just as the group did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll have a story this weekend. Surprise, Jeremy. At some point this weekend, I talked to Shauna Green about that, and Jasmine Brown-Hager talked about it a little bit in Austin in the locker room after the game. You don't want to – what that senior class did, everyone is aware, right? So anything beyond – how important they were to this program. But it reminds me a little bit, and I personally hate comparing across the halls of Oven because I think they're two independent programs, but it reminds me a little bit of after Trent Frazier, after Alfonso Plummer, DeMonte Williams, Kofi Coburn, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Matt Meyer's really long. Terrence Shannon's really long. And you do lose a lot of that core that you've had and that experience that you've had. And that is not a nothing loss. But there's also, I remember Brad Underwood's words, I think were in the longs, like it's kind of this fresh feeling, this invigorating feeling of having new faces and new, there's going to be ups and downs and this different talent and different skill sets and there is kind of a freshness about this. And you say that not to belittle the senior classes who had gone, but just there's a lot of new, and there's exciting about new. There's a lot more margin for error with new when you're not bringing back, old Kendall Bostic, old Adalia McKenzie, old Genesis Bryant, Micaiah Cook. I mean, they knew how to figure things out on the fly, just like Trent Frazier did, just like Alfonso Plummer, DeMonte Williams, Kofi Coburn, Jacob Grandison did. But you also just kind of have this newness that's fun and different opportunities. I know there's still for Shauna Green and her coaching staff, you can still dig into a lot of stuff. How's this going to look? Can Barry Wallace play? Is Barry going to be the 4? Can Parchment play center? How does all this look as you get these players on campus? How do these lineup combinations shake out? So there's something exciting to be said about what that can be, and when healthy, what the depth can look like for this team, and how many different possibilities. You could conceivably put Jackson, Guyton, Dolan, Wallace, and a center out there, and all of a sudden you've got some real scoring punches everywhere. And that's not even talking about Jasmine Brown Hager or Erica Finney, who can shoot the heck out of it, or Maddie Webber, who can shoot the heck out of it. So there's just so many possibilities there, and what that's going to look like. And with that, as we mentioned, are going to come some of those ups and downs and those growing pains. And you just hope there's not, if you're Shauna Green and Illinois, you hope there's not so many of them that it hurts you on Selection Sunday. But man, there's a ton of talent in that gym, or on its way to that gym.
Illinois has a real women's basketball program right
yes.
now. The talent they are accruing. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see the interest in them. But I do think there's going to be an interest in seeing, hey, how do all these pieces fit together? Who really steps up as a leader of this group? Is it Dolan? Is it Barry Wallace? Is it Jasmine Brown Hager? Or is it Aaliyah Guyton that can kind of be that as a point guard? Destiny Jackson certainly screams leader to me, but she'll be a true freshman. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to cover, and it's going to be fun to get to know these girls and tell their stories as you do so well, Joey. So I'm excited to see how it all comes to fruition, man.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch this. Fun for me. I feel bad, I'll be texting Piper oh, boy, you really got chased down a lot. I'm covering women's basketball. I feel like they're pretty good in the portal right now. Poor Derek still. I feel like we need a live cam on Derek, just in his office. Hey, we're just gonna have this. You just gotta, just come on and just tell us your thoughts. He is
Derek at his desk like this right now. Just all right, Illinois, add somebody that Illinois fans feel better about. I still think somebody for Illinois men's basketball is going to take their money and take their big roles. It's just, who is it going to be? How long do they have to wait?
Yeah. Shout out to Pipes, man. It's not quite 3 keys and a nap when Derek gets those picks in the night before a game after maybe a beverage or two. Yeah. But it's 1 portal and a nap for Derek Piper right now. Poor guy. It's crushing it. It's a lot of moving parts. So for me, I'm man, this is tough. I'm actually, I'm kind of feel like I'm done for a little bit here, and now it's spring portal window, so I guess we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves for football.
All right, good stuff. I think we covered it all there. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit that notifications bell. If you're just listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review, wherever. Derek was posting updates on our VIP board throughout this. I was kind of checking long, so you want to check that out on our VIP board. If you're not a VIP member, go sign up for 50% off right now. Savings of more than $60. Got plenty of football, women's basketball, men's basketball content up there right now. For Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.